There's so much change expected and so much anticipation about the newness of the front office. What if they run it back? Ooh, you ain't going to believe this show. Stay tuned here for Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That is exactly right. It is your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars, and we thank you for making us your first listen. Quick to remind you that wherever you listen to your podcast or watch podcasts, make sure you tap into that location so you do not miss an episode of the Locked On Jaguars podcast. We're always glad to have you here. And today's show is sponsored by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play just $5. And shout out to the everydayers here on Locked On Jaguars. We appreciate you. And if you're new, we'll appreciate you too the same way. All right, here's what we're going to go over today here on Locked On Jaguars. Doug or Trent? One got to go. What are you going to do? If somehow it comes out that Shad Khan says, I am going to make a change, but it's going to be one guy. And then he says, I'm going to let y'all pick it. You guys are the fans. I'm going to make one change. It's either the GM or the coach. Who's it going to be? That is something else to think about, man. All right. But then we're going to go back to the top and say, what if they just run it back? That's where we're going to start. We're going to go through all that. So what if they run it back? And then, okay, I'm going to take you on a little journey. I'm going to ask after that, what if they get rid of one person and not the other? Who do you think is going to be, Doug or Trent? Who would you want it to be, Doug or Trent? Let's get into it. Start at the very, very top. Why would I say they would run it back when reports are all out there indicating that there will be some sort of change? If you ask me that question, I'll tell you flat out, you just don't understand this organization. Because the Jacksonville Jaguars always kind of do things that you don't expect them to do. They always do that, man. They're always the Jaguars are always the team that moves a little bit slower. Now, they never do anything. They never go and do something that you don't expect. It's just that they don't do the things that you expect them to do. So there's a difference. Somebody told me a long time ago, it's commission and omission. Commission is something you do. Omission is something you don't do that you should, or not doing something that you should. So Shad Khan has been very, very slow to fire, and we know that. And while that could be considered a good trait if you're Trent Baalke or Doug Peterson, it is a bad trait if you're a fan of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Because if you believe, and sometimes fans are wrong, sometimes media members are wrong a lot, including me, right? But there is something for you to ponder and something for you to think about. I'm just doing this to set y'all up so you're not very disappointed if you don't get exactly what you want. Just to recap, just in case you haven't followed the Jaguars, if you haven't paid attention, they're 3-11. They're picking back in the top 5 after consecutive seasons of going 9-8. This is Doug Peterson's 3rd year. This is Trent Baalke's 4th year with the team. At the beginning of this season, Shad Khan said this is the most talented Jaguar team. Either he said in history, or I think he did say in history. But we kind of all thought that was ridiculous because the team back in '99 was the absolute deal, and they probably should have gone to Super Bowl and won it, but they didn't. They lost to the Titans three straight times. I know Tyler Rowland with Locked On Titans hear that, and he'll go, well, too bad. Yeah, well, that's what it is. But here's the thing. After that, the Jaguars seem to always move at a snail's pace, always be a day late and a dollar short. I'll give you an example. After the 2022 season, after the 2022 season, the Jaguars said, we got our team, we're just going to run it back. We're going to grow the young guys. And then they didn't grow. and they fell at the end of the year after starting out 8-3. And that's a little bit, if you look at it and you say, man, they came out 8-3, they must have been right, and then something happened. No, they came out 8-3 and the offense was playing like crap. They were leading the league or second in the league in turnovers, and they were very, very opportunistic and very fortunate to be 8-3 at that point. And you can say the same thing, sort of the way the Chiefs have been stumbling and bumbling all year. That's the way the Jaguars are playing. There's a difference, though. Chiefs are champions. They can stumble and bumble all they want because they stumbled and bumbled last year and bumbled and fell and tripped all the way to the Super Bowl championship again. So there's a big difference. Like people will, like right now, the Chiefs only lost one game and everybody's just sitting there going, they're not playing well, but there's a small feeling that you have that, yeah, but you get them in the playoffs, man, they'll figure it out because you're used to it. But with the Jaguars, that wasn't the case. But this organization made an error. They said, we got it. We got our guys. Supplement it here, a little there, we get a little guy here. And they drafted as if they were drafting for the future. They didn't draft as if they were drafting for depth. They didn't even appear to be drafting to get people who could help this organization right away, with the exception of Anton Harrison. So that was a mistake. And then they realized they made the mistake. And then last year they went berserk in free agency again. And after going berserk in free agency again, it was desperation. That's what led Shad to look at the roster and say, well, this is the best roster he's ever seen. The problem is none of those free agents that they signed have done anything of significance. Gabe Davis hasn't. Eric Armstead has definitely been a disappointment. Darnell Savage has been all right. So they go out in free agency and then they end up worse. They're 3-11. And this has to feel bad for Shad. And I'm hoping, I never want anybody to feel grief. Okay, let me rephrase that. I'm not sitting around hoping that he's so miserable and full of so much grief that triggers him to do something that he normally doesn't do, and that is just totally clean house. In fact, he's never actually totally cleaned house. He kind of did when he hired Urban Meyer because Urban brought his own people in, but then he cleaned him out too as soon as he got here. So, that's what the grain. He probably sits around feeling like, I have really screwed this up. I haven't had a coach that I could really look at and say, that's my guy. I don't have a GM. He held on to Dave Caldwell. Dave Caldwell here for almost a decade, if not a decade. It's like he was slow to move then. I think he's going to be slow to move now. I just hope a little part of me wants him to understand that patience is not what's needed here. You got to take another swing, man. You got to get up to the bat and swing again, and you got to keep going until you get it right. He said one time when he hired Urban, he think he got it right, and then he says, well, I think I got it right this time when he hired Doug Peterson. Hey, maybe you didn't. But here's the thing. Is he going to hold on to these dudes? If they run it back, I know a bunch of people have already said this on social media. If they run it back, here's what we're going to do. I'm done. I'm not supporting the team. And I'm looking like, okay, all right. We know that's not going to happen. All of the enthusiasm around the new stadium being built that'll be open in a few years, and all of the what happens in the offseason is they got to go through free agents, they got to go through the draft, and then they bring it back and they try to run it back, and then you'll get all of the press conferences and you get all the coach speak and you get the scout speak and the GM speak, and then you start imagining in your mind like, okay, maybe this thing can get a little bit better. And then there's this thing, they might win the rest of these games because they have such a terrible schedule at the end of the season. So you don't want Shad to sit there and start getting any ideas that everything's going to be all right. No, it's not going to be all right. We're going to be here. We're going to be doing the same thing, going through the same thing here next year and wondering, why did you stick with everybody? So no, we don't want him to do that. We want reality to set in. Maybe reality has to set in. Maybe he has to really, really look at this thing and go, we are 3-11 after I stood my butt up in front of the whole world and said, this is the most talented Jaguars roster ever. So something has to give. And I'm trying to come to a conclusion as why he would not make a change. But history says that he's very, very patient when it comes to this stuff. So what if he decides, okay, I'll compromise? What if he does the same thing he did when he had Dave Caldwell? What if he does the same thing that he did when he bought the team? He kept Mike Mularkey for a year. I put that on Wayne Weaver for signing him to a contract extension right before he sold it, but that's cool. It's whatever. Shad could have just still paid him and let him walk, but he didn't. What if they decide to make one change only? I'm going to make a case for both guys to be able to point the finger at each other. We've been imagining that this is what they've been doing anyway, right? But we're going to make a case for both guys pointing the finger at each other. And then in the third segment, I'm going to put it to you guys. I'm going to tell you, if that happens, who I think it should be. We'll do all of that here in just a second on Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, man, I know it's the end of the year, but guess what? Get ready to tackle the rest of the NFL action with FanDuel, and they are America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So you ain't got to scroll through in the hot sun and under the lights with people spilling popcorn on you. You ain't got to worry about that. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out all the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. Very important. You win your first bet, and you'll get $150 in bonus bets. Boop, it'll show up right there in your account. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And today's show is also sponsored by college football playoffs. That's right. It's that time of year, man. The CFP is back, and with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports coverage of the college football playoffs begins December 21st, starting with the college football playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T, and at 11 a.m. Eastern. That's when it starts, leading into our first matchup, the Southern Methodist University Mustangs, SMU, battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. Then the Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the college football playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. All right, running it down here on Locked On NFL. Locked On. It is Locked On NFL, but it's Locked On Jaguars. Look at me having so many jobs and getting confused with where I am. It's your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen here. We talked about what if they run it back, the possibility they bring back two guys. Now I'm going to stop torturing y'all and say, okay, Shad has at least decided, and this is all hypothetical, he's at least decided, well, no, I'm going to go ahead and make a move. I'm getting rid of everybody. Well, I'm going to get rid of one person, all right? If I get rid of one person, I just imagine if Shad had an imaginary conversation with both of these guys. I'm going to not act like them, but I'm going to act like I'm an advocate for them right now. And I'm going to point out all the things that I believe both of those guys could possibly say as reasons why. First of all, Shad would have to tell, I want you to be deadly honest with me. You know how your mama and your daddy used to do when it was you and your brothers? Say, come here. I want you to be honest with me now. What happened? And you know you got to tell the truth. Well, this is the case. All right, Doug Peterson, sit down. You got to tell me the truth. What happened? What went wrong? Knowing Doug, he'll be saying, he's just done a nice job for us. He's coming along pretty well. He's developing. He's done a nice job. I'm just joking. But he won't say that because at this point, let's just say that 4-13. Is that the right math? And 17 games. Yeah, 4-13. How do we get here? If I'm Doug Peterson, this is what I say. I'm not saying this is what Doug Peterson would say, but if I'm Doug Peterson, this is what I say. Look, we've got some good players, but we have kind of cherry-picked some stuff. When I won in Philadelphia, I had 3 first-ballot Hall of Fame offensive linemen. Jason Peters, Jason Kelsey, and Lane Johnson, who's still playing. That's what I had. I didn't have big-time wide receivers. I didn't have Christian Kirk. I had Nelson Aguilar and Alshon Jeffrey. I didn't have all of that. I didn't even have a franchise quarterback, and we played Bill Belichick and Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. I had a really good tight end who was a dual threat guy. I had 3 running backs by committee, kind of the same way I got here, even though they run 2 running backs in Jacksonville. But I don't think we have fortified the offensive line enough, and I think that has been the offensive line, in my opinion, has played okay when they have been healthy. But I have been begging Trent to get me some big maulers. Well, all my offensive linemen, with the exception of maybe one guy, kind of look like basketball players. Or maybe 2 now that Walker Little. Walker Little's big, Sheriff is big. Morse don't look like no basketball player. But you get my point. The point is I think they care more a little bit about athleticism than they do people who just move people. I'm watching all of these teams on TV with these big fat dudes all over the place, and they're just pushing people around. I know being fat sometimes doesn't have its advantages because you get tired. You have more of a propensity to get hurt. But those dudes ain't hurt. They're not hurt. Why doesn't this team have or play the way Detroit does? This is because Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell are on one page, and Trent and I have never been on a page. I would also say I don't mind him being on the field, but I don't need him standing in drills. I don't need him with a hat on, and I don't care what former player from Jacksonville tells me that it's normal. I have been going to practice for 20 years, and I am telling you, Dave Caldwell would come to practice. The only person, Dave Caldwell, would come to practice and stand by us. He would walk over there and walk around, but then he'd walk across the field and walk off. Tom Coughlin now, because of his coaching background, the dude won 2 Super Bowls, and Doug Marrone, he was sort of a mentor to Doug Marrone. Tom would be out there with his stuff, and he wasn't even the GM. There was times that Tom, as the senior vice president, was out there with his hat on and his sunscreen and his big paperwork. And Dave Caldwell was walking around doing general manager stuff, and he wasn't in the middle of the beginning of drills. I can't stand it when I see coaches coaching a player in these drills. They're in line. The player does something, the coach talks. Let's just say it's a wide receiver in this situation. I don't know if it has been, but I know I've seen it happen several times. Wide receiver in the situation, and Chad Hall, he goes through. Chad says, "No, do it this way, do it this way." God does it again, gives it. Chad gives him a bump. He goes to the back of the line. Here comes Coach Trent standing back there, and he's talking. And I'm telling you, it appears that the dude is just ignoring. And I stood on the sideline with media people, and I don't need to have them come on because I ain't seeking validation from nobody that have sat there and said, "Did you see that?" Yeah, that's what I saw. That's the case against Trent Baalke. We get along because we have to. We get along because you leave us here. You're away, and we need to get along. But Trent, we're just not on the same page, and I need somebody who will build an offensive lineup and prioritize that. All right. Thank you, Doug. Appreciate it. If you're Trent Baalke and you're his people, and you come in and Shad asks you the same thing, what happened? We were soft. We're soft. We're a soft football team. There's no accountability. It's Club Med. Everybody gets along. Everybody treats each other with respect, but this ain't Bible study. They haven't done right by Trevor, and I've been telling him to get rid of Press Taylor for 2 years, and he ain't done it. Trevor hasn't developed because they're running an archaic offense, and he has a bad offensive coordinator who is real friendly with, and he probably needs to get rid of their offensive line coach too, because the offensive line coach is his buddy. And they need to go. We need to get rid of the nepotism, and we need to, it's not really nepotism, but it's the friendshipism, and we need to move on to something else. It's him, it's not me. Look at my players. Look at Trayvon. Look at the guys that we've signed to second contracts. Look at Walker Little's development. We retained Josh Allen and all of his character. Look at Ofoye Oluokun, who I signed. Check the PFF numbers on Tyson Campbell. Look at those 2 running backs we have when they're both healthy. All right. And Brian Thomas Jr. is probably the rookie of the year. And if they could redraft right now, he'd go in the top 6 easily, maybe top 5 or top 4 in the draft. It ain't me. I went and got some players. Appreciate you, Trent. That's the best case that I can make for both of them. Oh, and by the way, both of them will probably say, we're close, man. We won those games down the stretch. We get Trevor back, and we have one more round of play. What if Shad says, "Well, y'all got to figure out a way to work together"? Well, you give us one more round, man. We'll finish it. Everybody always wants one more round. They want one more. That one more is the one that gets you in trouble, and that's why I think the Jaguars need to move on from them both. But just in case they don't, guess what? Check this out. If Shad gave you the range to pick which one of them has to go, which one would it be? Tell me something, Jacksonville. Talk to me in just a second here. I'll give you my answer on Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Prize Picks. Man, if you need to get some money, you better hurry up and get over there. I'm telling you, Prize Picks is the truth, man. Prize Picks is for real. You can now win up to 1,000. Listen, 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks. Plus, the holiday season, they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Pixmas and offering 2 free picks in December. And when your picks hit, Prize Picks makes it easy to cash out, and you can get your money in as fast as 15 minutes. That's right. This is it. This week, I'm looking at Jared Goff, man, because Jared Goff threw for almost 600 yards last week, or 500 yards, and now 230 passing yards seems like it's really, really obtainable. And then if Saquon Barkley plays, I know he's going to get at least one touchdown. It's quick, simple, and so much fun to challenge myself and my friends. Here's what you do. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you make your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly when you play just $5. Prize Picks. Man, you better run your game. And today's show is also brought to you and sponsored by Rocket Money. That's right. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That definitely happened to me, and my wife got all over me about it. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant to your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors and spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 per year while using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney/lockedon. All right, third and final segment here on Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen. All right, we're going to speedball through this, and I'm going to ask you one simple question. Who would it be if Shad Khan came to you and said, I'm going to let one of these jokers go? Which one is it going to be? They've both made compelling cases to him to keep their job. Pick one. I know everybody's mad at Doug Peterson, and I know the first thing everybody's going to do is try to put stipulations on this. And you know what they're going to say? They're going to say, well, if Doug fires Press, I'll keep him. If he fires Press and he fires that defensive coordinator, Ryan Nielsen, and he gets a whole new staff, I say let's keep Doug. Well, guess what? You don't have that option. You either going to fire Doug with the way that it is, whether he fires his whole staff or not, or you're going to fire Trent Baalke. What you going to do? For me, I think the fans are tired of both of them. But I haven't seen him put clown faces on Doug Peterson. I have seen him put clown faces on Trent Baalke. And I do believe that Trent Baalke is the one because he's never the one also in front of the microphone. He never speaks. I mean, barely. Probably 2 or 3 times a year does he speak. Now, he does his, he talks to the media, but there ain't nothing they're going to report because it's just conversation. But I would think that the person that everyone would want to get rid of is Trent Baalke. And if you came and asked me for my advice, if you came over here on the north of the airport of Jacksonville while I'm drinking my coffee in the morning and say, Wig, we need your help, baby, what do we do? And I'll say, tell him to fire Baalke and keep Doug Peterson. I've also seen Doug Peterson win a Super Bowl, and I know y'all probably sick of me talking about that, and y'all don't forgot all about that stuff. Y'all saying y'all chalking that up to luck now, but I have seen him win a Super Bowl. I ain't never seen Trent Baalke win nothing. And then when San Francisco did go to the Super Bowl, I give all that credit to Jim Harbaugh, who's won a national championship, and he got the Chargers right back in the playoff hunt in one season. So you got my answer. It is Trent Baalke. And I also think it's the answer that everybody else would give me too. I think everybody would say, nah, man, we got to get rid of him. We can't keep him. We can't keep him because we're just going to keep going in the same direction. And then I would think that it would energize Doug a little bit. And maybe y'all will get your wish. Maybe Doug would then move on, or maybe somebody will give Press Taylor a job. And then maybe Ryan Nielsen would say, you know what, this ain't really working out. It doesn't really fit. And Doug would have to go and get somebody else to be the defensive coordinator. And he'd have to go and get outside of his comfort zone and find another offensive coordinator. And then he'd have to find another offensive line coach. And then what do you know? Voila, maybe, just maybe, this team turns out to be able to live up to its potential. But no matter what happens, whether they keep these two people or not, or they move on, or they keep one or the other, they better fortify the interior of their offensive line and keep the quarterback upright, because if they don't, he's going to get hurt again, and the Jaguars will be right back in this same situation. Y'all ain't in no bad situation because y'all hanging out with me here every day on Locked On Jaguars. I need you to hang out with me again on Locked On NFL. First, you got to visit Tyler Rowland in the morning. The Madman will hit you early in the morning with everything you need that gets you going. He's going to tell you all the top stories from the overnight of the NFL in only the way the Madman could. And then you slide through the barbershop, and man, you would think we sitting there drinking and smoking cigars, but we definitely are not. But sometimes we act like it. So stop on by Locked On NFL and make sure you check it out. All right, you guys have a good one. Take care. We'll have Locked On Raiders crossover tomorrow, getting ready for that game in Vegas this weekend. Until then, you guys take care of yourself. We'll see you.